You're listening to Star Spangled Banter with James and Peyton, the social and political commentary podcast where we rant, you decide.
And so, my fellow Americans, ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country.
Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall.
There is nothing wrong with America that cannot be cured by what is right with America.
We're going to win so much, you may even get tired of winning.
Well, welcome back, America, to Star Spangled Banter. I'm your host, James, sitting right here with your co-host, Peyton.
Woo!
And we're your friends on the right and the left. Well, July 4th has come and gone, and all across this country, we celebrated the birth of our nation and the birth of this podcast.
Hell yeah.
Now, already, the second episode.
We're starting off really morose. I don't know.
Right. I don't
about
want to kill the mood, but we've already come into some controversy, which is what, I don't want to say it's what this show is all about, but I'm not surprised. So, the show kicked off, the first episode, and reception, of course, was mainly positive. Most listeners were entertained. Some of them were challenged by what we had to say. Some of them wanted to throw down. My brother was like, "You guys are a couple of statists." I'm like, "Well, come on the show." And
He actually
He
said
said that. I'm like, "Dude, well, come on the show and you say your piece." I'm like, "Oh." So Eric, the invitation is open.
Come on in, buddy.
Right? Please, we want you here. As a third-party guy, we want you on the seat. Anywho, so but most were entertained. A few listeners were off-put by our admittedly frequent profanity on the show. Now, let me take a little quick serious side note here and say this to our listeners. We never want shock or profanity to overshadow our message on this show. That's not what we're about. However, we are uncensored and we are recorded in the moment. And that means we're occasionally prone to passion outbursts that may include profanity or a blue streak or two. We're well aware of the line of what's proper and what's not. And again, admittedly, we occasionally cross it, and we will definitely work to avoid that mistake. Finally, I will say this, we can't and won't please everyone. Star Spangled Banter is a show that it is once galvanizing and polarizing. Our uncensored delivery may be occasionally abrasive, but we promise our final message always promotes unity and is worth sticking around for.
I fucking agree.
Amen. So, Peyton, anything you want to... What's new with
first
you?
off, that was beautiful, Jim.
Thank you.
It really struck a heartstring. And I agree. Like, I know that we get really heated and we come off abrasive a lot of times.
Right.
But, I mean, I think the problem is that what seems to be abrasive for many is actually, it's our passion.
Right.
You know, this is what fuels our spirit. So I can understand that people would take it the wrong way, and I never want to offend anybody, but at the same time, I'm not afraid to say, look, if this isn't for you, that's not for you. It's no big deal. We're not going to be hurt about it, and we don't want to waste your time either listening to something that you're just going to hate to the core of it. But I would definitely encourage those of you out there that may have a problem with a playful word here and there to look past it. It kind of stems from the idea of don't judge a book by its cover. Clearly, Jim and I have a lot to say, and we have a lot of ways that we like to say it. But at the core of it, it is, truthfully, two people trying to come together to find the common ground and hopefully encourage and challenge people to find that with others that they may disagree with as well. You
Right.
know, that's the point of it all,
Right.
is to stay united, to work together, and kick segregation's ass.
Exactly. Yeah. At the end of the day, our message is one of unity. You know, again, like we said in the opening episode of this podcast, every day the so-called news feeds us so-called facts, and we're bombarded by one side of the story or the other. What this show wants to do, again, is to cut through all of that and to find the uniting thread that brings us together as Americans, and that's what we want to bring to you, our audience, on this show. We're going to give you the best show, but we are going to keep it honest.
Yep.
So, with that being said,
Here's a joke. I'm going to lighten the mood a little bit.
go for it.
It's really quick.
Yep.
All right. Irishman walks out of a bar.
Okay.
That's it.
That reminds me of that joke that Gilbert Gottfried did. He says David Hasselhoff walks into a bar and pretty much stays there until it closes. Oh,
Oh,
welcome back,
man.
America. It's good to have you.
Good to be back.
Okay,
Good to be back.
Peyton.
So
So
the
what-
second episode.
Right, the second episode, second verse, same as the first. Well, different than the first, because there's always something new and exciting in America.
But I think it's kind of fun to like we said, we started this, on the week of the celebration of the birth of this nation, and I think it went off without a hitch. itch.
I think
for the
so.
most part. You know,
I think so.
I think
it got
was a
well received, and it was perfectly timed too.
Yeah,
I love
oh,
it.
yeah.
I love the fact that we launched on July 4th.
it was a fun week.
Yeah.
How was your 4th of July?
I spent it editing this podcast.
You did more than I did.
Oh God! By hour 4, I'm like, all right, I don't know what to do, and then finally, I don't know,
Yeah,
manna from heaven came down, and God is like, this is what you need to do, and I'm like, oh God, thank you.
Please bear with the technical difficulties, as even we're trying to
Right,
figure
we're
out how
still
this shit works.
Hopefully by episode 20 we'll be on a roll, but right now we're still like, what's this button do? And I'm like,
yeah.
whoops. But that's how I'd spent my 4th. How about you?
I spent it with in-laws.
Ooh, that's
So
either good or
I kind of feel like I should have been working on the podcast. No, my in-laws are great. We went to my wife's grandparents' house in Huntington Beach,
Ooh, very nice.
where it was a very balmy 75 as opposed to the 105
God.
it's been out here.
I miss the OC. I do.
Oh, it's been bad. But yeah, no, I had a good time. Ate some good food. Had some cheese dogs. Took an hour-long nap.
That's what America's all about, man.
And yeah, and then we went home
Beautiful.
and had a few drinks, and yeah, that
Also
was
what
about
America's
it.
all about.
Yeah, it was very chill, very relaxing.
Well, good.
So.
Well, cool. Well, again, folks, we hope your July 4th was just as interesting.
Tell us about it.
Yeah, tell
Tell us ways that you like
yep.
to celebrate
in our,
the
in our
4th of
Facebook
July.
feed. Tell us what
Comment
ways-
on Facebook,
Yep.
comment on the YouTube video.
Let us know what you think about the show. If you have any questions, if you have anything you want us to read on the air, let us know, because that's what we're here to do.
Absolutely. Well, I think it's a good time that we introduce a new segment that Jim and I have been kicking around the idea for a while now, and we think it's a fun idea, mainly because we know that there are plenty of morons out there. We're going to introduce a new segment to you. We call it Politic of the Week. Basically, this is our chance to introduce a political or a public figure that has found themselves in some sort of dubious headline or controversial position. Most of the time, the individual that we would talk about, they're either abusing their power, or they're ignoring constitutional rights, or, to put it simply, they're just putting their foot squarely in their mouth. And we just think it'd be really fun to poke fun, if you will, at the idiocy.
of these guys.
And I'm really excited, though, because Jim has said that he's got 2 this week.
I would have had 20, but I got to keep the show under an hour.
No, I'm excited because I have no idea who this
Yeah,
is.
I didn't tell him.
I've tried to keep up with the news this week. I've had a lot
No.
more free time on my hands recently, and I have no idea who he's going to talk about. So,
I-
Jim, take it away.
All
I'm
right.
so jazzed about this.
Well, in ascending order of stupidity, the first politic of the week I want to talk about is our boy, Colin Kaepernick.
Oh, dear God.
Oh, God.
What did he do?
Oh, what did he do? Well, let's talk about what he did. Well, first off, his politic move was actually twofold. And the first thing he did, I can't really fault him for because it's not really a dick move. But according to the news sources that I read, Colin Kaepernick over the July 4th weekend traveled to Ghana to, quote, find his personal independence, unquote. Now, again, I don't care if you travel abroad to find your inner self or to find your peace. You do you. That's totally within your rights as a human being.
Right.
But what I do have a little bit of an issue with is what he tweeted after he went to Ghana.
Twitter again.
Can I just say a side note? Whether you're a president or just an average dude, would you please rein in your ridiculous self-destructive tweets? It just seems to get people in trouble. But anyway.
Just hire a PR guy.
Right?
You clearly have the money.
It's not that hard. But anyway, so Kaepernick, during his globe-trotting adventure, tweets, and again I quote, "How can we truly celebrate independence on a day that intentionally robbed our ancestors of theirs?" Unquote.
Okay.
Now, my issue with
You're
this...
you're walking a fine line here, Jim.
Yeah,
Be
no,
careful.
I know. Granted, he's not entirely wrong, because slavery did exist well after independence was granted.
Right.
But it
like
also
100 years
right,
after it
right.
was granted.
But
and
it
then some.
Right, but it also existed beforehand. Great Britain did not abolish their colonial slave trade until 1807. Until that time, they were still shipping people off as indentured servants, whether they were white, black, or otherwise, to their colonies. So again, slavery and indentured servitude and a lack of independence was well before and unfortunately well after independence was granted. Saying that July 4th intentionally robbed your ancestors of their independence, I don't think it intentionally robbed anybody of their independence.
No, I understand that, but I also think that Kaepernick, being a U.S. citizen, he's not going to speak for Britain because he's not British. Like he's not a British citizen. He's not a British loyalist. It would kind of be the same. I mean, obviously, it's wrong wrong, all the way around. Even way back to when the Jews were enslaved by
All the way-
Egypt,
yeah.
and then I mean it's just it's all around.
Yeah,
But
we can all agree.
we can all agree that the idea of slavery is just completely wrong and should go away forever. But at the same time, it's difficult to speak on these things if you're not technically associated with those things. He's going to talk about the independence of America because that's who he is. He's American. He's not going to speak on the British thing because he's not British.
Right, but and I get that, but to me it sounded historically inaccurate, which is kind of what got to me. It also kind of insulted my sensibility as an American. I tend to look at July 4th as the holiday that granted this country its independence so that future generations, be they black, white, Latino, Asian, whatnot,
Right.
would have eventual freedoms.
Right.
Because God knows what would happen if we didn't grant our independence. Now, granted, I'm not saying, Britain would have us all in chains. I'm just saying we don't know where we'd be if we didn't have our independence. So to me, the tweet that he tweeted seemed kind of...
It felt a little
It
smug.
felt a little smug. I guess that's
Okay.
what
All right.
got to me the most.
I can understand that, but I also would think, I guess coming from the more left understanding point of it is I guess for me, I would rather him tweet something like that, and this is weird because I totally supported him kneeling during the anthem, but I would much rather him tweet something like that than kneeling to the national anthem.
Right. If you gave me a choice, I'd go, okay, tweet the slightly smug tweet.
Because
that
at
you
least it came off smug, but at least he's not incorrect
had.
to a degree.
To a degree. He's 50% correct, I will say. He's half right.
Yeah.
But half right doesn't make you all right.
But also,
Close is,
keep in mind of this, though. Keep in mind of this. I think, because this is something that I was talking to my wife about, where I feel like we as Americans, we definitely have this very smug stature to how we operate. And I find that very odd, considering we have been a nation for, 240 years, give or take?
Give or take.
As opposed
254
to
maybe.
the other nations that have been around for
Millennia.
yeah, like hundreds to even thousands of years. And so for me, I'm like, it's very interesting that we as Americans don't necessarily take a note from other nations and go, look, they get it because they've done it. They've done everything. They've done everything under the sun. We've
Right.
done 8 things under the sun.
Now, but that being said, sometimes we do get it because we look at I know that sometimes I look at Europe and I go, ooh, that didn't work out, or hey, that's not working out right now.
Right.
So
Right.
So yeah, no, I get that.
But I think it's just, for me, it just we're still such an infant nation. We seem to just we're trying too hard. Personally, we're trying
always
too
try
hard
too hard.
to make ourselves different from everyone else.
Right.
We're as far as I know, we're the only nation not on the metric system. Why is that?
Oh, no.
Why is that? That doesn't make any look at the metric
because
system. It is
I
literally
don't want to measure in meters, Peyton. That's what
it's
I don't
so
know. I don't know.
simplified.
Right?
It's so
I
much
don't know.
more simplified.
I've never been able to answer that question to anybody.
I mean, didn't we try the metric system for like a handful
We
of
tried,
weeks?
and then like a handful of people in the South got pissed off or something.
Get your goddamn commie metric system out of my nation.
darn commies. I don't know what happened.
But it's true though. We try too hard to make ourselves different from everyone else. And in my head, I'm going, I think the rest of the world gets it. They're like, okay, we get it, America. You're clearly different. Like, you don't need to keep hammering it in.
But America.
But America.
But America.
I like that one. That was a good one.
That one, again, like I said, that one wasn't the big douchebaggery of all. That wasn't the main politics.
That actually was a healthy dose of conversation.
Yeah,
That was a good one.
Cool. So,
Who's our
hey,
second
for
one?
a second politic of the week, our main numero uno head honcho politic of the week is Damon Wayans Jr. Again,
He still has a career?
I didn't even know he was still alive. But anyway,
Wow,
he's
all
not
right.
that old. I don't know why I said, but I don't know why.
We're totally sued.
Right? Oh,
damn.
God. But no, again, it was another July 4th tweet, and I'm like, you guys, there's nothing to do but sit around by your $1 million pools and tweet ridiculous things. Anyway, Damon Wayans Jr. decided he was going to get on his Twitter and celebrate July 4th by tweeting this, and again, I quote because you can't make this stuff up. Quote, "Happy white people proud of their racist ancestors' day." Unquote.
Wait, I gotta read that.
Yeah, read it.
I can't. I gotta.
I'll
read
even
that.
I'll even try
Hang
to
on.
show you the actual headline it came from. But happy white people proud of their racist ancestors' day. First off, I'd love to see that on a T-shirt. right?
It's okay.
But let me finish up really quick, and then
right.
I'll let you jump in, because I want to keep my momentum.
I need to get my
Get your thoughts in order. What got me wasn't so much that tweet, because again, people tweet stupid shit on their Twitter every day. What got me, what really solidified his place as number one on my Politic of the Week list, was after his fans, a good number of them, in fact a majority of them, and his close followers got pissed off at that tweet. He follows it up with this tweet, and again I quote, "Jokes aren't illegal. Yep, it was a joke, but feel free to be offended by it." And he even added a little winky face emoji to let us know he's being smug. Now this I want to pose to Mr. Wayans. No, jokes aren't illegal, Damon, but they can be stupid, insensitive, ill-timed, and yes, borderline bigoted. As to your passive-aggressive, smug reply that it was a joke, I ask, was it really? Because it sounded like you were a little bit sincere in your original tweet of Happy Racist White Ancestors Day. That's why I put Damon Wayans Jr. at the top of the list, because I actually followed up. I actually did some research here really quick to see, okay, maybe he's right. Maybe there were, maybe everybody who fought in the War of Independence was white racist. No, they weren't. I actually researched, and at least at the Battle of Bunker Hill, there were African American patriots. And again, I should have written their names down because I don't have their names right in front of me, but I looked it up. There are at least a handful of African American patriots fighting at Bunker Hill on the Patriot side. And let us not forget good old Crispus Attucks, who unfortunately was caught in the crossfire of the Boston Massacre.
Just a quick little thing. No, I think you should do, James. I think when we post this episode, we should post the links in the comment feed to those articles.
Yeah, I'll definitely post the link.
Just to give the audience the reference that we're talking about.
We'll try to do that too with any of our references that we talk about. So again, I did my research on that, and I'm like, no, there were a number of them. So it's not like all white racists fought in independence. It came off smug, and it came off passive aggressive.
Well, if I may, first, I have a problem with anybody posting anything on social media, and then whenever somebody takes it a certain way, you automatically hide behind, oh, I was joking around.
Right.
Like, you can do that with virtually everything. There's no sarcasm emoji that you can put to make it sound like you are actually telling a joke. And that's the difficulty with posting anything that is joke-related on social media. There's no context. And I mean, I guess for someone like Damon Wayans Jr., who's known for doing comedies, it would make sense that he would say something that would be of a joking manner. But again, at the same time, there's no context. We don't actually know. So of course you have the ability to hide behind, guys, come on, I was joking. That's stupid. That's just dumb. And that's not just Damon Wayans.
That's anybody.
That's anybody. Anybody that can do that has done, myself included.
Exactly.
I will even admit, I have said some stuff that was borderline joking, borderline not joking, and was like, oh, well, guys, I was
kind
joking.
of backpedal on it. Right.
I'll admit to it.
Yeah,
I totally
we've all done it.
Yeah.
But because we've all done it, we all recognize it when we see it. And that's what I saw here. I'm like, no, you're hiding behind the joke excuse.
Yeah, I would agree. I would agree with that. I think it's very difficult to... God, it's so hard to talk about this stuff. And I think what would be nice to do is to have somebody who is black on our show.
Right.
Or even comment on it. Because as two middle to lower class white males, I feel like we don't have a lot of clout anymore left in America.
Well, the wind has certainly been taken out of our sails the last couple decades.
I would hope that people would realize that we're not racist, and we don't.
No.
But racism is on both sides of the aisle.
Yep.
And it's frustrating that, like, it's hard to speak about this because, yes, historically, what a large majority of whites did to the black community was terrible. Like, the way that the South perpetuated the idea of slavery and fought a civil war, which, actually, this actually is really nice because I think this segues beautifully into our main...
The headliner.
Into our main headliner that we're going to get to here in a moment. It's difficult to speak on this behalf because I'm not black, so therefore I don't understand it. However, I would like to understand it. I want to try to understand it, but at the same time, because I'm not, there's a chance that I will never understand it.
Right.
Which sucks, personally. I guess for me, it's the continuation of the guilt trip of people that we really hold no connection with. Like, I guarantee you, I probably don't have any ancestors that were
Half
here.
my family. Well, here, you want to know
during the Revolution.
You want to know me? Half my family, my dad's side, was still in Europe.
Mine too.
We didn't come here until 1911. The other half was Native American.
Oddly, me too.
So, if you want,
what Native American tribe?
I am fourth generation Iroquois Nation Mohawk tribe.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I'm like 164th Cherokee.
Okay, so you were in the neighborhood of my people.
A little bit. A little bit. We were nicer.
We were yeah. God,
We
yeah,
were way
we were
nicer than you guys.
Yeah, like research our tribe, not fun. Anyway,
This is stuff that happened in the past, and though we need to be aware of our past, we need to be aware and learn from our history.
Right.
We really need the guilt tripping to stop.
You have
It's
to.
crap. We had nothing
No.
to do with
No,
what happened back
nothing.
then, you know? And in fact, I think that generations nowadays are trying much harder to understand and realize that, oh shit, it's still pretty bad.
Right.
And we're doing what we can.
Because I
but-
think we get-
But it's comments like these that make it difficult to
so
be
difficult.
like,
I'm
I
like-
want to keep, I would like to keep understanding and work. But again, I may be missing something.
Maybe.
As a white person.
I don't
and
know,
not-
but all I
yeah.
know is when I read that, it came across as smug, passive-aggressive, and quite frankly, just ignorant. And bigotry exists on both sides. And again, there's no such thing, by the way, as reverse racism. It's racism.
Yeah.
Whether
Oh,
you're,
yeah.
whether you're black, white,
Yeah.
I don't care what you are.
Yeah, racism is a blanket statement.
Yeah.
It covers everybody.
Everything. We just need to work at cutting off the guilt trip and working at making it right. Morgan Freeman had a great response when he was asked what we should do about racism.
Mm-hmm.
He replied, stop talking about it.
Oh yeah, I would agree.
Yeah, if we stop talking about it and work towards bettering ourselves, then the problem, I think, would work itself out.
Yeah.
So-
Well, I mean, it's interesting that like the older generation of African American individuals, you know, they've said some pretty profound stuff that I feel like a lot of people within the black community and just altogether, like another quote. I'm paraphrasing, but something that Samuel L. Jackson had said, where he basically had said when it comes to either racism or violence or whatever it was, this is not a. I'm totally fudging this up because I don't remember. He basically was alluding to the fact that this is a problem that is dealing with a lack of respect for life.
Right.
This has nothing to do with color. This has nothing to do with creed or gender or religion. It's people not respecting life.
Exactly. And that's a pretty profound
And
statement.
that's the core of it.
Yeah.
He cut to the core of it.
Yeah,
and
it
I
is,
think
it's true.
that, so I think that we need to cut to the core of these issues.
And we need to be aware of them, and we need to cut to the core of it, and we need to stop messing around with rhetoric that, quite frankly, doesn't help.
Yeah, it doesn't. So,
so-
please, we definitely encourage those in the African American community to please let us know. Please
Yeah.
comment. We want to know your opinion on these comments. Do you agree with them? Do you not? What say you about the current racial issue in America?
Exactly.
We'd really
and
like to know.
again, if there's anything that you want us to discuss on our podcast, please put it down in your comment feed, and we will do our best to address it.
Yeah, absolutely. So,
With that being said, folks, we got to take a break here on Star Spangled Banter. It's been great talking with you, almost half an hour. Hang in there, work on those ideas for comments, and we'll be back. Woohoo!
and we're back.
Yeah! We found our way back to the mic.
Did we lose it?
Nope.
Oh, all right.
I mean, we might not be able to find our way back to the recording studio because it's such a big place. I said sarcastically.
Literally like the size of a half of like a closet.
Really?
Like a giant
Yeah.
walk-in closet.
We're basically broadcasting from a walk-in closet with air conditioning.
That's the best part, the air conditioning.
Oh, thank God, because it's about 101 degrees outside
It's
right
just
now.
nasty.
God.
It's so bad.
So bad.
If you're listening to us and you're not in California,
Lucky bastard.
be thankful. It's just hell right now. It's so bad.
Horrible. So, what do you got for us, Peyton, for our headliner of the day?
Well, I think a good segue into the comments that you had made about Damon Wayans and his comment regarding the racist history of America. A friend of mine posted an article that I found very intriguing, and I thought it would be neat to elaborate on. I'm going to read the headline. This comes to us from the Washington Post. It says, KKK marchers say they will be armed Saturday at Charlottesville rally. Now, obviously that's clickbait because, A, it's the Washington Post.
Right? I was going to say that they are clickbait.
Even though, as a liberal, I definitely appreciate them more than, groups like NBC and CNN. But
Agreed.
it's definitely clickbait. I'm like, oh, shit. Like, it's
Right?
about to go
It's
down
about
in
to
the
hit
deep
the
south
fan,
again.
right?
Like,
Civil
oh,
War II
man.
is about ready to erupt.
I think D.W. Griffith came back from the dead and he's shooting Birth of the Nation 2. We're still here.
We're still...
I'm just going to read little snippets from this thing, just to give the audience a little bit of context. So, a Ku Klux Klan chapter holding a rally in downtown Charlottesville on Saturday afternoon says it expects 80 to 100 members and supporters to take part in the protest, and that most will have guns with them. One of the loyal white knights of the KKK, which is just, it is such an odd title to have, like
the
the
loyal white knights.
like.
The virtuous, upstanding white knights of the KKK.
See, now,
Who
okay,
would-
after reading that, I now get why Damon Wayans said what he said, so I get it. I get it. So.
I don't, but yeah, but okay, Damon. You may have made a slight point, but you're still smug.
But according to this guy, James Moore, who is a loyal white knights, apparently Virginia is an open carry state, so their members will be armed. This specific chapter is headquartered in Pelham, North Carolina, near the Virginia border. Basically, they've issued a warning saying that if the members are attacked or harassed in any way, shape, or form, they will be defending themselves, which is a nice way of saying we're going to shoot you in the face if you do anything.
You know who else made a similar kind of threat? John Brown.
Really?
Yeah.
What was
John
it
Brown,
about?
back in the Civil War.
I don't know who John Brown is.
John Brown. Oh God, I hope I'm saying the right name. John again, kids, it's been a while since I crack open a history book. John Brown was a abolitionist. He and a team of his followers basically stormed and tried to take Harper's Ferry and arm the slaves for an uprising. Which, of course, as you can imagine, didn't go over so well, and he ended up being hung or hanged.
I think it's hanged.
Hanged, yeah. English language. He ended up being hanged for this crime. But again, I think it's interesting that we're kind of having sort of an echo of the past with this threat of violence. Only now it's opposite. It's if you take away our monuments of
That's so weird.
Confederacy,
That's so weird.
we'll shoot you.
Well, that's what it was. Like, basically, the KKK, they're protesting the Charlottesville City Council because a decision that they made a year ago, which was to remove a statue, a apparently famous statue of the Confederate General Robert E. Lee from a public park. It was once named Lee Park, and now they're going to be naming it Emancipation Park. However, there was an injunction that was put into place that is now halting the statue's removal until a hearing that will take place this November. Until then, they're basically are just but they've taken away a plaque from the statue itself. Mm-hmm. It says something about Confederate heroes. So city officials have already taken away the plaque, but they're leaving the statue, and they're planning on taking it away and renaming the statue. So essentially this KKK rally is now saying that the liberals are taking away our heritage. By taking these monuments away, they're trying to erase the white culture right out of the history books.
That's what's quoted?
This is what's quoted by James Moore of the KKK. Now, I find this very intriguing because, A, I don't think the statue of Robert E. Lee it's not a federal national monument. So...
That I know of, anyway.
Right. This is such a weird gray area for me. I should be able to say, fuck the KKK, we're taking away your statue, kind of thing. But for me, yes, does the statue and the Confederacy represent racism and bigotry and a very, just a hateful rhetoric towards specific individuals? Yes. And I think that they need to be abolished. I think they need to be taken away. I think we need to get over this whole notion of the South will rise again. No, you will not. I'm sorry. It's been 150 years since the Civil War. No, you will not. I'm just going to say it outright. Shut the hell up.
For as much belly aching as you guys do, I haven't seen squat done.
There hasn't been much going on.
Right.
You know,
We haven't done really jack. Never seen you guys rise up en masse.
Yeah. How about you guys pull your states out of the lower 20 states in education?
Oh, God.
And then we'll start talking. What was it? Wasn't it during, like, Bill Clinton, when he was governing Arkansas?
Yeah. It was like
Bill Clinton was quoted saying something like, "The proudest moment of being governor of Arkansas was bringing my state from education from 50 to 49. What the hell? Like, that's something you keep to yourself.
I'm right. The proudest moment of my life.
Why would you admit that?
Is when my waist size went from 50 to 49. I mean, nobody.
No one's gonna care.
Nobody advertises that.
Like, why would you admit that? It's just stupid. The other side of it is that, yes, this is a part of our history that we should be reminded of. It's a part of our history because, look, I'm not all for erasing moments from history. I think that they're important. They're there for a reason. They're there to learn from, and we need to quit this idea of we need to, he's right. We shouldn't erase this part of the history. Granted, he's doing it for a wrong reason.
Right.
But in a weird way, he's right. We should not be erasing this thing from the history books.
And that's always been sort of my issue with this whole rampant erasure of history over the past, what seems to be the past maybe 10 years, is...
I'd say longer.
I'd say longer than that. But it really seems to be prevalent within the last 5 to 10 years. I mean, you hear it a lot.
Oh, yeah.
History is history. You can't erase it. What's done is done. But what you can do is learn from it. Show it. Learn from it. Go, okay, this is what happened. This is why it happened. This is why it should never happen again. And this is what we're going to do to make sure that it doesn't happen again. But instead, what you're having right now is this insistence on whitewashing history.
Yeah.
Just literally sandblasting it off the face of the history books, pretending it didn't exist, and then pitching a fit when somebody brings it up.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, no, it's history. It's our history. Did the English demolish all of their castles because they're a horrible example of feudal systems that they would like to forget? No, they don't. They use them as tourist attractions. They go, this is our history. This is
Right.
what we came from.
Right.
Now, that being said, I'm sure they're not locking people away in the dungeon or the Tower of London
We
anymore.
would hope not.
We would hope, right? Maybe you are. Your English are kind of weird. Maybe. But my point to that is that, the rest of these other nations that I know of aren't whitewashing their history. And that's what gets me about what we've been doing recently. Is whether you're talking about Confederacy, whether you're talking about any aspect of history, I think it's wrong to gloss over it, stick your head in the sand, pretend it didn't exist, and teach future generations that it never happened. I think it's a mistake.
I think a good way to go about that would be, instead of, if you're going to bring a bunch of tourists or take a school trip to this statue, instead of saying this is Confederate General Robert E. Lee, he was a great man, fought many great battles, was this, was that, what you should do is say this is Confederate General Robert E. Lee, who fought a ton of battles but was kind of a dick.
So many people in the South hate you, right?
That's fine. I don't plan on ever going there, so not
yeah.
true. The people of Mississippi are actually really nice. I
Right.
went to Mississippi and they are super nice people.
The deepest South I think I've ever been in is Arkansas, and they're pretty cool.
I went to
Dry counties
yeah.
everywhere, but
I took a trip with a buddy of mine. We drove from Orange County in California all the way to Orlando.
Wow.
So yeah, we drove through like the heart of the Bible Belt.
Literally through the heart of Dixie.
Alabama. We went through Louisiana, Florida. I mean, we went through every, like just shy of missing the Carolinas.
and nobody pulled you over for being from California. Huh?
Nope. Well, it's because the car that we were driving was licensed in Alaska.
Ah, well,
So
nobody cares about Alaska. We don't
Exactly.
even know what to do with Alaska. First off, how did you guys come all the way down here?
he drove from Alaska
Oh
and picked
my
me up
God.
in California, and then we went to Orlando.
How is it that cars can go that far?
He kept up with it.
You'd think that the car would just crap out by the time you got to Louisiana. And go, oh, well, we're walking
Yeah.
back.
So I mean that would be one way to go about it,
Right.
to just say this guy was not a great person, like what he fought for, what he
well,
fought against.
I think
you
he
know.
was a decent person because if historically he was a God-fearing, decent guy. But I would stress that he fought for the side that was for the wrong ideals.
Yeah,
He
that
had-
happens a ton in
Yeah.
history.
Oh yeah. You have a decision to either fight for the North or fight for the South, which in this case is what he had. He had a decision. In fact, the North invited him, come lead troops in the Union.
Yeah.
And he said, no, my heart and my soul belong to my home state of Virginia. I'm staying with the South.
Right.
So again, I think it's important to stress that he wasn't necessarily a bad man, but I do think we would have to stress that he fought for the wrong principles.
And that's why the majority of me is going, yeah, take the statue down. Like that's for me. I'm definitely siding more with I don't care if they take the statue down, because
See, and that's where, for me, I'm like, well, the statue never should have gone up in the first place. But
Right, exactly.
But there's also part of me that says, but now that it's up there and it's history, leave it alone and learn from it.
do we know when the statue was erected?
I would venture to guess it probably went up between the 30s and the 50s,
Uh-huh.
probably in that time frame. But I don't know if you want to do a quick
I'm gonna look that up right now.
check.
Okay, so it says here that the statue was erected in 1924.
Okay, so close enough.
Which to me feels a little late, if you ask me.
Uh,
It's literally a 60-year difference.
For Robert E.
between-
Lee, who's a big figure in history, yeah, I'd say it's a little late. It's not like this is, Gomer Pyle, USMC, and
Oh. All right. Well, it
What?
says here that it was listed on the National Register of Historic Places in 1997.
well, there you go.
Well, shit. So it is a federal jurisdiction.
Well, that
Um,
invalidates that argument.
I don't know. I still think just take it down. That's my opinion.
Yeah.
That's my opinion because, okay, we have enough pieces of history, whether they're in the history books or manuscripts or whatever that talk about Robert E. Lee and the Confederacy and what they did. So it's difficult to say that we also need a statue.
I don't know too many statues of John Wilkes Booth or other insurgents.
Exactly.
I mean, not that I'm trying to equate. I mean, I guess I am trying to equate Robert E. Lee with an insurgent.
No, I think that's a good. I think we should a little bit
Yeah.
because Wilkes Booth was of course famous for assassinating Abraham Lincoln at Ford's Theater. Was he a registered Confederate?
I believe he was. He was definitely a Southern sympathizer. I know that.
See, now that's what I want to know. That intrigues me. Is that so? We're willing to say that this Confederate figure was a good one, but not the other one. Well, if you kind of come from the same stock.
But but then you're gonna have people that go, well, Robert E. Lee didn't kill Abraham Lincoln.
Right,
But
he just killed a bunch of other people,
Right,
too.
that was gonna be my other argument. Yeah, he led troops that killed thousands of other people.
As far as we know, John Wilkes Booth killed a person.
Right.
Lee killed potentially hundreds.
And John Wilkes Booth killed one guy because he got lucky because Lincoln's
Exactly.
bodyguard had to take a piss.
Exactly.
I mean,
Or if Lee didn't kill people, he certainly got hundreds of people killed.
Right.
On his side and on the opposing side too.
we're getting it banned in the South. I just know it.
I don't care. This is my I don't care face.
Right? But that being said, as far as the statue thing, I thought I read someplace that the statue is actually getting moved. It's not necessarily getting destroyed. Maybe I'm wrong, but I thought I read that it was getting moved from Robert E. Lee Park to just some other, not necessarily a park, but some less offensive area. I don't know. Again, I'd have to look into it. But from what I understand is it's not getting destroyed. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe somebody out there with a Facebook account and plenty of time on their hands wants to comment and let me know how wrong I am, but
I wonder if the KKK bought it.
maybe they did. It's going someplace where it's not getting destroyed, I think. So I'm like,
Alright.
okay, well, if you're doing that, you're removing it from a prominent place and you're carting it off someplace in the corner by the bathrooms in the tree, then okay.
I find it so intriguing that just human beings put so much stock in these inanimate objects that do no good for anybody.
Oh God, it's so hard because us as Yankees, don't.
He quotated
I
Marx.
I actually made finger quotes when I said that. We as Yankees don't, according to the people from the South that I would imagine would agree with me, I feel like we don't have the same sort of pride. I feel like there's a special vein of Southern pride that runs through that region.
And I don't get it.
I don't know.
I don't
why
get it.
either.
I don't get.
I
I mean,
don't know.
Yeah, they have poor education. They have poor.
No.
When you live in an area where your backyard neighbor is an alligator, like.
Hey, they named that alligator. He's part of the family. Take that back.
What did they name him?
I don't know, Edgar or some damn thing.
Edgar the alligator.
Edgar, and Jimmy Bob.
Oh man. I think though that it's just you're right. Like it's a little bizarre to me that people from the South and predominantly those that assume themselves to be Confederates. It is weird. They have so much pride and yet they lost miserably during the Civil War. They have so many problems in the South still to this day because they don't want anybody to mess with. I don't get it. I just don't get the pride.
I don't know.
I
don't
not
know.
understand it.
That's something for far more educated guys than us.
It's just I don't know. I just if they move the statue, fine. But I'm honestly all for taking it down because especially if they are moving it because technically then they're not erasing.
Well, that's my point.
A piece of history.
If you're moving it, you're not erasing it. I can get behind that. But
Right.
if you're completely destroying it and melting it down because you don't like the fact that the Confederacy existed, well, now we've got a problem because you're just sort of again whitewashing history.
The Confederacy existed, but at the same time, I'm like, you know what? If you want to know about Robert E. Lee, read a book. You don't need to go visit his statue.
Watch Gettysburg. That movie was almost as long as the war.
It'd be like staring at the statue.
It would be. I think you get more enjoyment staring from the statue.
What I find the most disturbing, though, is the fact that, yes, even though Virginia is an open carry state, I think it's ridiculous that they're all going to be carrying firearms, and if anybody does anything, that they're going to open fire.
I feel like nothing would happen, though. If you're, let's put it this way.
You think so?
Because if you're an open carry state, let's say you're the KKK, you're carrying guns. I'm the
You
guy.
bastard.
Yeah, okay, I'm the KKK. I don't care. It's an analogy.
I'll take the KKK.
All right, one of us has to be the. And I'm the guys wanting to remove the statue, and I've got guns because again, it's an open carry.
Mm-hmm.
You have a standoff situation. You either have a standoff, if you're smart, you have a standoff, or if you're incredibly stupid, you have a bloodbath.
Right.
I think you're going to have a standoff. You're going to have what happened with what happened at Standing Rock, where you had a potential of basically things going, pardon the pun, but going south really fast.
Oh, yeah.
And it didn't. So my point...
It did in a few ways.
Yeah, but I mean, not the horribly violent, cataclysmic way that it could have gone down.
You had rubber bullets and tear gas and mace flying everywhere. And
Well-
the protesters were like, here's a sign.
Well, okay,
So
okay.
the
So
problem
obviously-
is that clearly the law enforcement was really in the wrong with that one. We could talk about that
That's,
another episode.
that's another episode. But my point is, nobody died. And
Right.
whereas there, with the threat with the KKK with this, it's like, well, if you get close
You
to our
have the
monument,
potential
you
for
are going to
people
die. Like,
Well, especially because they're rallying in a public park. I
So
mean,
it's not
you're going to
just
have families, you're going to have children, you're going to
picnickers,
have...
children, families, elderly, pets, wildlife, the occasional tree.
Exactly. It's wrong. It's
Yeah,
wrong that they're
it's-
just going to be hanging out with
Uzis
open
and
carry
shit,
or
right.
not. It's just
And
it's
look, I'm all for,
stupid.
again, another topic for another show. I'm all for open carry. I'm just saying, I think that if you have two people on opposite sides of the argument who both carry guns, nothing's going to happen, because if I'm smart, I'm not going to shoot you because you're going to shoot back.
Well, the good thing is that the city officials, including, I believe, it was the mayor and the governor, were saying things to the city, to the townspeople, saying, look, this is going to be happening. We're sorry. There's nothing we can really do. It's totally in their right to do this. So what they decided to do is they started to give them ideas of what to do around town that are nowhere near that park. And some organizations even went a step further and actually started creating events. They created little things that the people could do to keep their minds off of it, and they would go nowhere near that park. Because essentially what it sounds like the KKK wants, they just want any sort of time in the limelight. Any sort of news attention that they can get on this, they're going to soak it the fuck up.
Well,
and they're going to enjoy it. They're going to bask in it.
They're getting it already. Look at what we're doing. I mean, I can't believe
Right.
I'm saying that the term KKK in a sentence in the 21st century.
Yeah, no, I agree.
So,
But I definitely appreciate that the government and the citizens are taking the high road with this, and they're just going to leave them alone. Because if you don't give them the time of day, what good is it
Yeah.
that they're going to do?
yeah, they're not going to do it. That's why I say I don't feel like anything's actually going to happen.
I hope not.
But I think with this, because I do want to segue on, I think we can agree that the monument in the first place is probably a bad idea. If they take it down, they should put it out of sight.
Which now begs the question, what about other monuments? What about other monuments around the nation? Right off the top of my head, there was a couple years ago in front of some courthouse, they have a giant statue of the Ten Commandments. Well, and I actually found this story really humorous a few years ago when I read about it. A group of Satanists went and issued an edict asking for a statue of, I want to say, the Baphomet or some occultic figure erected right next to the Ten Commandments. Now, not to get into like too much of the religious aspect of it, but they are technically in their right to erect something like that.
From a constitutional standpoint, yes.
Yeah, it sucks, but
Right?
I laughed so hard
From a
when I
right
saw that.
Satanist. Oh God.
But something like that, but not necessarily talking about the Satanist thing, talking about the Ten
the
Commandments.
Ten Commandments thing.
Because a lot of people do not like that so many court systems in the nation are starting to take down their Ten Commandments. Like, they're basically just completely taken out at this point, as far as I know.
Well, I have my own thoughts on that, which of course I will tell you because that's what I do on this show.
What?
I
was
don't-
not ready for this.
Can't believe you said it with a straight face. It's difficult for me to say this. I understand the whole you don't want the church involved in the governing aspect,
It's the separation of church and state thing.
which I will get into in a minute because I freaking hate that excuse. But I also understand that, and again, people get mad at me for this, because we did have a sort of a Christian foundation or a biblical foundation.
I would say a biblical foundation.
A biblical
I don't think
foundation.
a Christian foundation.
Because
is
we
the
did
right
have
way
a
to put it.
biblical foundation as a country.
Right.
These things were put in our courtrooms. I think the separation of church and state issue that people often use to bolster their reasoning for taking this stuff down is, to me, kind of infuriating. Because the separation of church and state, which, by the way, is not a constitutional principle, it's not anywhere in the Constitution, it's supposed to separate the church and religions from being dictated to by the state. Now, it also supposed to say that not supposed to be a statewide religion, which is fine. I don't think there should be a nationwide religion. I think as a nation of all religions, we should be willing to...
The melting pot.
It's a melting pot. We should be willing to accept that there are going to be religions. That being said, leave the Ten Commandments alone. just why? Why such this disdain? Let me put it to you this way: if the Quran or a Buddhist symbol, the yin and yang, was displayed in a courthouse, would we take that down? And would we be so hard pressed to do so?
I would say yes.
Would we really?
See, but I'm on the side of saying we shouldn't have the yin and yang symbol. We shouldn't have a statue of Buddha in a courthouse, just as much as I would say I don't think we need the Ten Commandments in there as well.
Well, my whole thing is I think if you're going to take down the Ten Commandments, it's a slippery slope because now you need to disallow every type of religious symbol from public ground.
Okay, but I think the difficulty, though, with the Ten Commandments is that, yes, when you get to the latter ones, the thou shalt not, steal,
Right.
Don't lie, don't cheat on people, don't kill people. I mean, those are universal ideas that we all get behind, of course.
Right.
But the first four of the Ten Commandments deal with a God figure. And since this nation is built on an idea that you can worship freely however you want to, it's difficult because it's a weird passive aggressive way of saying you can worship what you want, but you need to adhere to this. And especially going back to the idea of people saying, "Oh, we're a Christian nation." No, we're not. We're a biblical nation. That we were bounded on biblical principles, and especially if you're going to tell me that we're a Christian nation, the Ten Commandments existed well before Christianity ever existed. It's taken from the Pentateuch of the Torah.
You're right. Okay, fine.
It has nothing to do with
Christianity is based in Judaism. It stems from Judaism. That's where Christianity comes from.
This is really awkward now.
Right? Well, I'm just saying. I mean, that's...
Wait, are you saying that because Jesus was a Jew?
No, I'm saying that because that's Christianity is the belief and the theological system that Christianity stems from historically and, again, theologically from Judaism.
Okay.
The only thing that separates Judaism from Christianity is the New Testament.
Right.
Okay? We both adhere to the same God. We both adhere to the same beliefs. We both adhere to the same set of rules. So, yes, we are a Christian nation, but I would also argue we are also a Judaic nation.
Ooh, I like that.
Yeah?
We're a nation of Jews.
Right?
Who knew?
Take that, Germany.
Germany. Oh, now we're going to get banned in Germany.
Right? South hates us. Germany hates us.
I definitely see your point. But yeah, I don't know. I would still adhere to the idea that the Ten Commandments is not a solely Christian thing. It's a biblical thing. I don't think it's a solely Christian thing. So the idea, it would make more sense that if we were in fact a Christian nation, it would make more sense to put the cross of Jesus in a courtroom before the Ten Commandments.
Yeah, but people would hate that too.
People are going to hate everything.
You've seen how that works.
Oh yeah, no, it would suck. It would absolutely suck. It comes back to the idea of you enforce or promote anything that has to do with a dogma, any sort of a spiritual figure like God, like Jesus, you're going to have problems. And that's why I think that universally the second half of the Ten Commandments makes a lot of sense. Mm-hmm. First half doesn't. In the scope of just humanity as a whole.
I just think that going back to the actual displaying of the law, of the monument itself, I think that if you're going to promote freedom of religion, you should allow us to have the Ten Commandments up someplace.
But then you should be allowed to have a statue of Satan next to the Ten Commandments if you want.
Well, there you go. But to fight that, I would just put a big old statue of Buddy Jesus in front of Satan. That would be my response.
It's like that one picture of Jesus.
Yeah, he's like the Buddy Christ.
He's doing the Fonzie thing. He's the Buddy Christ.
So I would love
a statue of Buddy Jesus.
Statue of Buddy Christ, right up on.
Who could say no to that?
Right?
I would love that.
So anyway, but my point is, yes, if you're going to allow one, you have to allow all. I totally agree. But if you're going to take down one, you got to take them all down, buddy. You got to get rid of all of them.
I agree. I feel like an argument like that, like a monument of that size, that caliber, needs to be all or nothing. You can't pick and choose.
You can't pick and choose. You can't.
A nation of religious freedom, you cannot pick and choose.
Right. I just think a lot of bellyaching and a lot of much ado about nothing is made over crosses and Ten Commandments and this, that, and the other thing, when we're also a nation of freedoms, and you can have the freedom to not look at the cross on a hill. How many times have we read in the news that some atheist group or some Satanist group or some, upset old woman...
Are you talking about Rubidoux?
I'm talking about everywhere. But okay. We can use Rubidoux.
Okay, well, where I live in Riverside, California, there is a very famous tall pillar of the cross on top of Mount Rubidoux. And I remember, even to this day, there has been so many people that want that thing down. But the problem is that it's been up there for so long. It's in a very similar vein, like the Robert E. Lee statue. Mm-hmm. There's really not much you can do with it. But should we?
But here's the difference. a symbol of Christ, as the cross is, Christ didn't fight for the Confederacy promoting slavery. So I'm just saying,
true.
not only that, like I said before, you don't have to look at it. If there was a big old statue of Satan up on top of the hill, yeah, I'd be a bit freaked out about it. I wouldn't particularly like it. But if some Satanist group decided to put up their ridiculous statue of Baphomet, it is what it is. It's freedom of religion or freedom of insanity in this case.
Well, you touched on a good point earlier about the separation of church and state. And you said that in regards to that composition is essentially the state not telling the church what it needs to do, correct?
Right.
Shouldn't that be the flip of it, too? The church should not impose its own ideals onto the state?
Well, yeah, I mean, it goes both ways.
In that regard, the Ten Commandments should be removed.
But that's what I'm saying, that it's a difficult situation because
Right.
half of me goes, yeah, you got to remove them because you're in a government building, but the other half says, no, it's a misinterpretation of the separation of church and state, which again is not in the Constitution.
I find it weird that it's not.
It's not. And all of these judges...
Okay, so where does that come from?
It comes
then?
from a letter that Thomas Jefferson wrote to, I think it was Dr. Benjamin Rush, in which he pushed for the idea of church not being dictated to by the state.
Uh-huh.
A separation of the state's interference, more or less.
And nobody thought to put this letter or this article in the Constitution. No
Well,
one thought
well,
it
this
should
was
be
this was
amended.
I don't remember if it was pre or post Constitution, but I guess nobody thought about it. But what always gets me is when you've got these federal judges that are like, well, if, for this, they hear these constitutional cases. I'm like, well, your whole courtroom is invalid because it's not a constitutional right.
That is so weird.
I
didn't even know that.
Yeah, it's not in there. Look, read it. It's nowhere there.
Do you think that they thought people were going to assume that because
No,
of the
no.
First Amendment?
I think, well, maybe, but I think that what you had is somebody.
I think
that-
they figured we were going to be smarter.
We were,
than
yeah.
we are.
We kind of have a mental dark ages between the 1700s and now.
Little
So
bit.
I think that what you probably had happen is you had some jackknob somewhere come across separation of church and state. He's like, well, I don't like religion and I don't want it interfering with my state. So separation of church of state, y'all. And I think it
Yeah.
became one of those things. And somebody else went, hey, that's a pretty good idea. And we just kept building up, and nobody ever asked the question, hey, is that actually, I don't know, fucking in the Constitution?
Yeah,
So-
I feel you. So we're pretty much in agreement, though, that when it comes to any monuments, religious, it's either all or nothing.
You either got to go full boat or go home.
I would agree with that.
You know? And-
Well, here's something we may not agree on because I didn't bring this up to you, but I want to talk about probably the most famous monument in all of American history, the Statue of Liberty.
Ooh.
Oh man.
What have you got?
The
This is-
floodgates have been opened,
this is
baby.
This is gonna be good.
Oh man. Okay. So the question is,
I mean, it's from the French. They can take it back.
reunite the sisters. Come on.
Right? Come on. They're lonely.
Do they still have their one erected
don't
somewhere?
know.
Because
I don't
no one ever
Nobody
shows it
it.
ever.
I wonder if it was I don't know.
You think it was destroyed? What if it's in like some random country like Mozambique or something? Like,
Somewhere under a sand dune in Turkey.
it like hit it in the Gobi Desert or something.
It's in the warehouse along with the Ark of the Covenant. I don't know.
What if that's what one of the poles are? The North Pole
Right?
and the South
Ooh.
Pole.
It's just this.
It's just this statue just covered in
It's
ice.
just the hand sticking out of the ice.
Oh,
I don't
would
know.
love that,
I don't know what
so.
happened to it. honestly.
Well, okay, so, and I'm saying this in regards to the recent issue that has come about, probably one of the worst issues that has come about with this Trump administration, which of course has been the travel ban. It's been the issue with immigration. What does it say on the Statue of Liberty? Give me your poor, you're tired,
your huddled masses,
you're
begging for-
hungered,
yeah.
everybody. It was erected where it was because that was supposed to be the first thing that European immigrants saw when they came into this nation. It was supposed to be a symbol of acceptance across the entire globe. Unfortunately, because of just how odd immigration is as a subject in this nation right now, does the statue still hold some sort of relevancy?
Yes,
Okay.
because you're gonna hate me for saying this.
Oh, here we go.
Because the Statue of Liberty does not say, "Give me your terrorist sympathizers." The statue says, "Give me your poor, your hungry, your huddled masses begging for hope." Blah blah blah. The travel ban, at least the updated version of the travel ban, the one that should have been given out in the first place.
Okay, well, it's not going to help no matter what. It's still called a travel ban. I'm not okay with that.
Okay, but
But go on, I'll let you finish.
thanks, Kanye. But the The travel ban as it stands now eliminates those who have no ties to relatives in this country, have no business being here. We're not talking green cards because those are allowed. Basically, those who have either have known sympathies with terrorist organizations or those who are not vetted and who have no immediate business being here. It is a temporary ban. It is a temporary ban on terrorist sympathizers. It is not a temporary ban on Muslims. If it was a temporary ban on Muslims, Saudi Arabia and at least half a dozen other countries would be added to that list.
We're never going to ban Saudi Arabia.
Of
Are you
course
kidding
not.
me? We have too much stock in their oil, which is
but-
the dumbest fucking thing.
My point is, it's always touted as this Muslim ban. You look at the ban as it stands now, it's far more lenient than is being advertised.
Right, but the question, however, when it comes to whether or not it was specifically targeted to Muslims, how many stories did you hear about the travel ban that were coming from people from England or France or Spain or people that weren't associated with the Nation of Islam in any way? Because I don't remember hearing any stories about other nations. It was just Muslim. That was the problem from the beginning, is that he banned all of the Muslim-centered
like
nations.
I said, the first ban is...
it was shit.
It was just... Even I have to admit, it was complete crap. I think the issue with countries like Spain and England not being so heavily vetted is that the majority of the problem, the majority of the terrorist activity comes from those specific nations.
Right.
Now, again, that's not to say that England doesn't have their problems, because they definitely do. Spain doesn't have problems with terrorism because they're there. And that's not to say that there's not domestic terrorists here within our own borders, because there are.
And yet we don't kick them out of the country.
Right.
We hope to someday get rid of the KKK.
Right? We're working on you
And the
guys.
neo-Nazis.
We're working on you.
We're doing our best.
My point is, it's not a ban solely on Muslims. It's a ban on terrorist sympathizers.
Right.
And it's just being advertised incorrectly.
Which is not new with this administration.
No, never. And again, what gets me with this administration, and this is coming from a right-leaning guy, what gets me with this administration is that it's like they put out a rough draft, and then they backpedal and they put out the second or third draft. And like, oh, what we meant to say was this. Well, why didn't you say that in the first place?
Oh, man. No, I understand the whole issue. Again, it comes from the fact that it looked bad. It looked bad because we only targeted Muslim-centered nations, but not necessarily Muslims themselves, you know. And unfortunately, I find it really odd that out of every single nation that we banned, Saudi Arabia, who, lest we forget...
I believe a certain Osama bin Laden was Saudi Arabian.
You mean to tell me that we didn't ban those who caused 9/11? What?
Well, that's all, folks.
Like, that's what gets me. But of course, you know, the reason why is because
we know
every
why.
politician in Washington has stock in oil.
They got their hands so far down the Saudi prince's pants, it's not even funny.
Dude,
But
Warpath Payton's creeping out again, man.
don't.
Woo! All right. Taper it back a bit.
Just a bit. But where were we going with that thought? Because I totally...
It's the idea of the Statue of Liberty and its relevance.
Okay, all right.
Because for me, it's still supposed to be like this prominent symbol, but I don't know.
It's so hard for me as an American, because I want to embrace everybody. But as a realist, I know that that's not possible, because there are those out there that wish us harm in the guise of those who don't.
For sure.
And the problem is, and we have seen it, and we have seen it in Europe, and we have seen it here, the system that's in place right now doesn't work. The system of vetting that's in place right now is just so convoluted, so ineffective, that too many people slip through the cracks who look innocent and benign and turn out to be just the opposite. Look at what's happening in Germany. Look at what's happening in Spain. Look at what's happening in Sweden. You have cases where they did just the opposite of what we're doing with this travel restriction. Look at what's happening there. It's everybody for yourself, and they're having problems of crime and terrorism and rape and all sorts of horrendous acts coming from, come to find out, a lot of these refugees who weren't really refugees. They were terrorists who used refugees as a disguise to do what they're doing in Europe. So I look at that and I go, well, I don't want that kind of crap here. Would you want that kind of activity happening? Would you want to read that in the news?
Okay, but on a smaller scale...
Because we didn't do our due diligence?
Okay, but on a smaller scale of what you're talking about, I still don't feel like we need to punish the majority for something that a small few did.
We're not punishing the majority.
Okay, but by not allowing them a chance to get away from the insanity that's going on over there, that's kind of have a little bit of a punishment.
We're
Like,
not
oh, no,
so-
no, stay where the war zone is, because, you know, we don't trust you. Even though it's not them we don't trust, it's other people that are in no way associated with them that we don't trust.
Well-
Think about it this way. This is an analogy I use because this happened when I was working for Disney. This happened all the time, and it pissed me off to no end. Okay, so a lot of times there would be a specific individual who would cause some sort of a problem. Either they said something, or they did something, or they didn't do something. They weren't doing their job properly. They goofed up.
You said goof.
I did.
Disney. It was
I
funny.
can't get it out of my system.
Oh, sorry.
So, but they did something that was wrong. Now, some of us, and it was usually me, because I'm pretty vocal with this kind of stuff.
What?
Like, I'm sorry. If you fuck up, I'm going to call you out on it. I'm sorry. I'm going to, because I'm not going to deal with it. I don't deserve to deal with it. So,
You're smarter than that, Peyton. Come on. You're a good guy.
That's probably why they let me go,
Right?
because I wouldn't shut up.
You're making us look bad, Peyton.
But I would always go to the manager and say, look, and you know what? You can call me a tattletale. You can call me a pussy. You can call me whatever you want.
Yeah, rat
I
cake.
don't care. If you're not doing your job, you don't deserve to have the job. Sorry.
That seems like common sense, doesn't it?
The right winger in me came out a little
Right?
bit right
Damn.
there.
I mean, I'm like, oh,
If you're going to be just a complete moron when it comes to your job, like I would constantly be going to management and leads and saying, this guy did this stupid thing. They broke a rule. You need to take care of it because they're doing it over and over and over and over again, and nobody is nipping this thing in the butt. And they would go, okay, fine, we will take care of it. And I would be like, thank you. And I'd go on my merry way. The very next day, I would go into the break room, and there would be a giant poster that says to everybody, all cast members, don't forget, don't do this, keep doing this, da-da-da-da-ba-da-da-ba-da. And I knew that was because I went in there and said one specific individual is causing all of this problems, and yet they're going to leave a note for the entire cast, the entire building that we worked in. And there were about 50 plus people that worked in this building. So you're going to punish everybody instead of actually pulling the one fucker aside and telling him to knock it off? That doesn't make any sense to me. That is wrong, that is lazy, and I will not stand for that.
Okay.
So that's obviously a smaller scale of what you're talking about, but I feel like it's the same thing. We need to be going after the specific individuals and not be just in a
Well,
very general way punishing everybody.
Here's the slight hole in your analogy, and I'm just gonna poke it and put my fist through it and pull my arm
You're
out.
turning me on a little bit now. dude.
Ugh. Good night, folks. The hole in the analogy is this. When you went to your management and talked about this particular asshat,
Right.
they could have easily gone to this individual asshat and gone, hey, asshat, you're being an asshat. Stop it. Instead of posting this poster in the break room.
Uh-huh.
Terrorism is not an individual. It is not one person. It is not one little group. It is an entire ideology. And you can't pull the terrorism aside and go, slap on the wrist, knock it off. You guys are scaring the shit out of people.
For sure. I'll give you that. I give you that with terrorism, it's a much
So,
It's a much
unfortunately,
broader scale.
Unfortunately, I don't think the West, the United States specifically, but I don't think the West has figured out how to combat the threat of terrorism effectively yet.
which still boggles my mind. I mean,
Because it's a new thing. Because don't forget, dude, we've been in our
how is it a new thing?
because we've been in our American bubble for how long?
Okay, hang on a second. Would you not say then that the Nazi regime in World War II was not a terrorist organization?
I would say it was exactly a terrorist organization, but do you
And
know
we
how?
nipped
but,
that thing in the
but
bud.
do you know? Okay, because there's a difference between the Nazis, who were an actual political group in a one solitary country, versus an ideology. And not only that, do you know how many GIs were stunned that Auschwitz even existed?
Oh, yeah.
Were stunned.
Oh yeah, no.
You know?
There's a great documentary on Netflix about the 5 great filmmakers from.
5 came back.
Yeah, 5
Yeah.
came back. Great
Yeah.
documentary.
Yeah.
It's about John Ford, William Wyler, and Frank Capra, and John Houston.
Coming back with these atrocities of war.
Yeah, and some of them were stunned. Like one of them discovered Dachau, and they were blown away that this even existed because nobody knew that this
Nobody knew.
existed.
Well, 2 things. One, they hid it so well.
Yeah.
And 2, we kind of put ourselves in this isolationist bubble that's not what's happening over there. That's not what's going on. And I think to a degree, because the United States has sort of been in this bubble pre 9/11, because we were in this bubble, we got such a rude awakening, we're still kind of coming out of this groggy sleep, like, oh, well, what do we do? Like, how do we handle this? And that's why I think we sort of this slapshod handling of terrorism, because one, like I said, it's an ideology. It's not an individual. It's not a group of individuals. It's not a country. It is a widespread ideology that touches on every nation, every creed, and it doesn't matter. It's something that you can't effectively fight with guns, with bombs,
Yeah.
you can't. You cannot do that. You have to do something. And if this travel restriction is the first step of doing something, if that's how it's going to be for our first step to getting on the path of actually addressing terrorism properly, then so be it. But I'm not going to not do something just because I feel better about it and then pay for it later on.
I get it. I guess it's just so hard. It's so hard to just watch these videos and watch these updates about how just these children are just.
I know.
Really, it's the
I know.
kids. Like
It is.
it pisses me off. Just
But don't get pissed at
how
don't
these
get
kids
pissed at
are
the
suffering.
administration. Get pissed
Oh, I'm
at
just pissed
get
at everybody.
Get pissed at the terrorists.
No. I'm
Get
pissed at the
you know,
no. I'm pissed at the administration because they're allowing these kids to suffer. But I'm also pissed at the terrorist organizations
Right.
that are using these kids
and the government organizations over there that are doing jack and shit to stop it.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's just it's heart wrenching, and it's also but going back to the Statue of Liberty issue, it's heart wrenching when that thing is up there.
I know.
4 issues of this exact scenario, issues of bring the children, bring the hurting, bring the poor, bring the suffering.
Yep.
We will take care of
I
you.
know.
We will help you. So that's why I'm saying if we're gonna keep throwing bans and restrictions out there to the wind like it's no big deal, you need to take down the Statue of Liberty. I'm sorry. That's just that's how I feel. That's what I believe.
Well, again, the ban, thank God, is not permanent. It's just a band-aid to try to address a bigger problem. If and when something more effective that narrows in on the actual source of the problem, and I'm fully well expecting, whether it's this administration or the next administration, to implement a more streamlined version.
Yeah.
Now, when that happens, great. Until that point, like I said, we can't just not do anything because we feel bad about doing something. It's so hard. It's hard because I'm right there with you, dude. I agree. I see these pictures of the kids and I see these civilians who have nothing to do with what's going on.
Well, there's got to be something we can do.
There
There's-
is, and we're on the path of finding out what it is. But until then, we have to put a stopgap to prevent other people who don't want us to do good for these people from coming over and dicking with our own house. And that's what, to me, what this restriction is all about. And that's why when I hear people pitch a royal bit about it, I'm like, well, A, you haven't read up on what it really is, and B, you haven't thought about the real reason why we're doing it. And C, again, it's not permanent, folks. It's not. And the minute it gets lifted and something better comes into effect, I'll be just as happy as everybody else too. Because I want those individuals to come into the country the right way and to come in the honest way, who want freedom, who want to be part of the system, who want to pledge the flag and love this country as much as I do. I want them here.
Well, one of my favorite images recently that I saw, it's just a beautiful image. It's a cartoon of the Statue of Liberty holding a Syrian child, and the child is actually holding the torch while the Statue of Liberty is holding, like, protecting it, like it's protecting this child. And I find it so beautiful and poignant because that's how it should be. If I'm incorrect in thinking this way, that's what the statue was supposed to represent from the very get-go.
I think you're right.
And I think that we need to cut back to the core of what the Statue of Liberty represents and what it's all about.
But that said, we also have to do it responsibly, and because we're in a whole.
I hate being responsible.
I know.
Fuck, I hate
right?
being responsible.
Because we're in a whole new geopolitical climate.
Yeah.
We cannot approach things the way we did 40, 50, 60, or even 100 years ago. It doesn't work that way anymore.
Well, how about this then? What if, okay, then kind of going back to our Colin Kaepernick thing from last week, this needs to be something where we need to actively find programs and create systems that actually work.
Well, you know what?
Put them into effect. If they don't work, then we go back to the core of it.
Then I implore our listeners to do just that, to get some organizations going, to either talk to your congressman or hell, build your own organization from the ground up. Get responsible. Start doing these things.
Even more so, if you know of an organization that's doing this, post it in the link below.
Yeah.
Post it in the comment thread. Let's get these programs out there. If there's a stronger, better vetting system that allows us to save the children, that allows us to help these poor and suffering without bringing in terrorism, we want to know about it.
Yeah.
The world wants to know about it. So if you know of them, please comment. Please let the world know. We need to be actively showing the world we can do this. We can help. We can fix the system. We need to fix the system.
And I think we can, and I think we should, and that's what we're here to do. So please.
Because I don't want to see the Statue of Liberty go down.
Well, unless you're watching a Wolfgang Peterson film, yeah. I don't think that's going to ever happen. Really, honestly.
Not at all.
And
you don't think it'll ever go down?
No.
Interesting.
No. I think, like I said, I think the only thing that's going to take it down is an asteroid or an alien ship, because it represents something more than just
For sure.
the symbol. It represents, like you say, it represents this
No, yeah. I don't want to see it go down either, but there's also a part of me that's like, well, if we're not going to adhere to it,
Yeah, but
why?
you know what that is? That to me, that's rage quitting the United States. That's like,
I
forget it. If you guys aren't going to play the game right, then I'm leaving.
You're talking about Overwatch.
I'm talking
right
about
now.
Overwatch. All you Overwatch players out there, you need to get your shit together, because I'm tired.
Man.
I'm tired of this crap.
Oh, it's bad.
Oh,
It's bad
anyway,
sometimes. But yeah.
so-
all right.
so-
So
No, I
so
think-
in regards to specific monuments, we think that maybe they shouldn't be destroyed, but they should definitely not be as.
They shouldn't be idolized as they are.
That's a good way to put it. When you turn these things into an idol of some sort, then you've taken the focus away off of what they represent and more so on the thing itself.
And let's not forget, folks, whether you're pro or con the monument, it's just a statue. It's not the statue that's important. It's not the monument. It's what it represents.
Exactly. Except the KKK.
Except
you guys
the
are,
KKK.
you guys
yeah.
are fuckers.
You guys can piss off.
You guys are just the worst.
Right.
You're clearly in the wrong.
So, with that being said, I think we've made a clear distinction that there are some monuments that should stay, some should go, and some that endure forever.
For sure.
Any last word that you want to give?
Not that I can think of. You want to take a little break before the last word?
Let's do that. Let's take a little break because
All right. I
think-
need to piss.
So do our listeners. We'll be back.
Well, we have come to the end of this episode.
And I'm sure you're grateful.
Well, yeah.
I was talking to the audience, but yeah, I'm sure you're grateful too. Yeah.
I could keep going for hours. See, we are very thankful that you guys have stuck around for the second episode. Leave us your comments, leave us your feedback, let us know what you think. If you have any ideas for like maybe something of like a future episode that you'd like to listen in on about a specific subject, something in politics, something within the American culture itself, let us know. Let us know what you'd like to hear, and we'll do what we can. So keep an eye out. We're just really excited about this journey and really excited that you're joining us on this journey that we're taking together. So I guess for our last word is this: don't put so much stock and staple into the monuments themselves. The monument itself should not matter. Think of them more like a piece of art. It's not the actual piece that you take away from. It's what it made you feel.
Mm-hmm.
It's what it made you think. It's what you interpreted from said thing.
Exactly.
And I think that if you take that away and apply it to your everyday life, as long as it's not harmful to those around you, take away what you will, something that you could learn from.
And that will last with you a lot longer than any monument. 100 years now, they'll be rusted out, they'll be gone. Again, folks, and it's what unites us that makes us stronger. And it's uniting behind a common cause, behind the American dream.
Yep.
And that is stronger and more resilient than any monument will ever be.
I agree.
So with that said, from the bottom of our hearts, Peyton and I thank you for joining us for another fun-filled edition of Star Spangled Banter.
Where we put the WTF in USA.
That's the truth. Thanks again, folks. We'll see you next time.
Peace.